Okay, so our next unit is microbiology. So this unit is really focused on different diseases and how these diseases are caused, like what causes these different diseases to happen. So we're really going to be focusing on microorganisms, which are really, really tiny living things that can cause disease but don't always cause disease. Okay, so here you could see some pictures of different diseases. These are kind of dramatic that could occur because of a microorganism invading your body. All right, so let's start off by just talking about what disease really is. So your body has to do different tasks every day. Like it just functions normally every day. We don't even really think about it. Things that just happen in our body that take care of different things. However, when we have a disease, it means we have a condition that prevents the body from functioning normally. So all of a sudden we start to realize we're not functioning how we should be functioning. This means we have some sort of disease. There's something in our body preventing our body from doing these different tasks that it has to do, or from doing them in the best way. So a lot of diseases are infectious, which means that they can be spread from one organism or living thing to another. So like in the winter, there's the common cold that gets spread from one person to the next. Not all diseases are like this. Like obviously cancer is not spreadable. It's not infectious from one person to the next. If you touch someone who has cancer, you're not going to get cancer the next day. It's not like that. But a lot of the diseases that we're going to talk about in this unit, we're going to focus on the infectious diseases because those ones, there's a lot we can do to prevent the spread of them, which helps prevent people from just getting them or having to deal with the disease. So we're going to be focusing on these infectious diseases, meaning the ones that can spread from one organism or living thing to another. Okay, so what causes these different diseases are mainly microbes, which is a fancy word for microorganisms. So microorganisms we study through microbiology. Microbiology is a type of biology, so biology, bio means living. Biology is the study of living things. So microbiology is a science that explores little living things. Micro means little. So microbiology is a basic science that explores microscopic organisms. Microscopic organisms are organisms that you can only see through a microscope. You can't see them using just your eye, like looking at the floor. I'm not going to be able to see microscopic organisms on the floor without a microscope. So the four main types of microorganisms that you're going to explore today are viruses, bacteria, parasites, and fungi. So some of these can grow into, and there can be many of them, so they can grow into things we can see with our eye. Like obviously some funguses we can see with our eye, we don't need a microscope, but just one by one you would need a microscope to see each of these four microorganisms. So here's the formal definition of a microorganism. It's a living thing that cannot be seen without a microscope. So you need a microscope to see it. But it is alive. It does have cells. So many of the diseases that we're going to focus on in this unit and talk about are caused by these microorganisms. They're caused by things we can't see. That's why it's so important to wash your hands and do different things like that for hygiene, because a lot of this disease is caused by stuff that we just can't see coming. So we just need to know that we're killing germs when we wash our hands and that kind of stuff. So not all these microorganisms cause diseases. They're just small organisms. They're not all deadly, okay? They're not all ones that are going to give us some sort of disease. They're just microorganisms, okay? But a microorganism that causes disease is called a pathogen. So that has its own term for it. So not all of them are deadly, but the ones that do cause disease and could cause death are called pathogens, okay? So let's just look at a few diseases that could be caused by different microorganisms. So one here is called scarlet fever. This doesn't happen as often today, but it was a huge problem like 200, 100 years ago. It's caused by a bacteria, and it's an infectious disease which most commonly affects 4 to 8-year-old children. So it's mostly younger children. And symptoms usually are sore throat and fever, and there's this red rash, which is why it's called scarlet, which is a red, scarlet fever. And you can see the rash on these two people and it's like on the tongue and neck, and then it can spread if it's not treated. So you can see it spreading to this other person here, and here it's just starting on the tongue. So it kind of looks like a bad sunburn, but there's lots of little bumps, and usually they itch. Okay, so that's scarlet fever. We don't see that as much, but it's caused by a bacteria, which is a microorganism. Okay, athlete's foot, that's caused by a fungus, and you can see a picture of it here. Okay, it's a fungal infection of the skin. It usually results in like itchiness and flakiness, and it can definitely spread, especially through like more moist, where there's a lot of like water environments where people are walking. So this happens a lot with athletes in like a locker room. That's why they call it athlete's foot, because there are like a lot more moist areas and a lot of people are walking through the same space. So it's really important to, be very hygienic and clean in a locker room situation to avoid this kind of thing. And then, of course, the common cold. Okay, that's caused by a virus. And, the typical symptoms of a common cold: runny or stuffy nose, itchy or sore throat, cough, congestion, all that stuff. That's caused by another microorganism, a virus. Okay, so these are just typical diseases that are caused by microorganisms. So we could call the microorganisms that cause these diseases pathogens, because they do cause disease. Okay, so you're going to read about each of these different diseases in stations on Blend Space, and then you'll fill out your graphic organizer as you read.